big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring my art channel. Hello, welcome to my art channel. I have finally completed the third iteration of the hairstyle meme that I've been kind of doing for the past couple of months. I guess I just started doing one with one of my main characters, Heijin, and then I just by default committed to doing the rest of my characters. So slowly I've been hacking away at this task in between my freelance and whatnot. So yeah, as you can see, this is Noelle, and I have been looking forward to doing this one for quite some time because she is one of my favorite characters to draw. I used to have like a long phase of drawing Heijin most of all, but for the last several years, I guess I've been drawing Noelle most of the time, especially for like any side stationery projects that I have, and you've probably seen her in a lot of my recent illustrations. But yeah, so this was a lot of fun to draw, and I included the entire sketching segment over here because I wanted to show you guys that sometimes like it's so difficult for me to find a footing when it comes to sketching, and these are the types of drawing sessions that I have to be extremely patient with because things just don't land right away and don't work out the way that I want them to, and it requires just so much patience to get everything to look as intended. So I think part of the reason why it was kind of difficult here is that I'm still trying to adjust. Sometimes, like for the most part, I think I've fixed my stylistic problem that I've made several videos about, like talking about it last year probably, or like the year before, where I was kind of in a place where stylistically, because I was doing so much freelance work that required a lot of character illustrations and concepts, where the facial proportions and the body proportions were quite different from what I want to draw on my own. Not like radically different, but the little differences really added up and kind of created an effect that I did not intend for my own style. And so it took me a lot of time to revert back, or at least figure out a new approach that is closer to what I'm looking for. And I will say that for the most part, I've figured it out, and it's no longer like a huge struggle to find the proportions that I'm more happy with when it comes to my characters' faces. But sometimes I will just have days where, for whatever reason, I'm just having a really bad time drawing, and it's like way more difficult than usual, and so it feels like an uphill battle. So as you can see from the first two sketches here that I recorded, I had to move and shift around the facial features as well as redraw them many times before I was able to get to a point where I could let it go. And when I say that, I'm sure I've mentioned this in some of my videos before as well, but when I do these sketches, I try not to aim for 100% perfection. And by perfection, I mean just like exactly the type of face that I'm looking for. So as I'm sketching these, I already have in mind the fact that I will fix it and polish it further and shift things around further when I'm inking, so that'll kind of get it closer to what I want. Otherwise, if I spent all the time doing trying to get the sketches to like 100% accuracy as far as the character's face goes, it would just take way too long. And then oftentimes when you take that approach, it's actually really difficult to replicate it when inking, because you end up putting so many like little adjustments and little lines into the sketch that it becomes really kind of overworked, and then trying to simplify it with inking just has a completely different effect, and then you feel like you're going backwards. So for that reason, I aim for like, I don't know, maybe 75%, like 80% satisfaction. I would say probably like 70% actually, and then I just go and fix the rest of it when the inking part comes, which makes a lot of sense. It's like there's no point in really polishing out anything during the sketch phase. So it took me quite some time to get warmed up. I think this is probably one of the issues that one of the causes for the issue that I had with this particular drawing. I did not have time to do a warm-up session just because this month has been so busy for me, honestly, and I was finally able to find some time to finish this hair meme. I don't know why I'm so committed to these hair memes, but I will finish them all anyways. So I just wanted to jump straight into drawing it, and unfortunately I was feeling very rusty that day, and so it was a huge pain to get all the sketches to look okay. Some of them were definitely easier than others, but as you can see, they were looking pretty wonky, and I would say as far as sketches goes, like these are some of the worst ones for me for sure. So before I continue, I'm going to take a minute to tell you about my sponsor, Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence for your business. I use Squarespace as a main website that hosts my portfolio and links to all my other social media platforms, as well as my online shop. It's been such a pleasure to add to my website from time to time because it's so quick and painless. I like to change up my logo now and then, and my latest iteration in the scrapbook aesthetic looks amazing, I think, thanks to the Squarespace template that I've been using. Adding anything to my site's navigation system and portfolio is very simple. Each element can be clicked on in the website editor to bring up the corresponding settings that you can tweak, and the automatic image scaling makes uploading images a simple one-step process. If you want to start building your own portfolio or shop website, head over to squarespace.com and get started right away for free. You can see for yourself how easy it is to make an attractive website. Once you put it together and are ready to launch, you can head to squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And now back to the video. Yeah, after I finally was able to get everything down, and I kind of made sure to resize. The reason why you see one of the previous or the first hair meme that I did to the side here is that I wanted to make the head sizes sort of similar, just so that the drawings, because later on I'm planning to use these drawings for something. Like obviously these take me a lot of time, and I definitely take it past just simple doodles for fun, so they're quite finished and clean, and so I want to use them for another purpose in the future. So I'm trying to kind of make the head sizes similar within the frame, but I think for Noelle, I ended up making her head just a little bit smaller than my previous hair memes because she just has so much hair that I needed more space to fit it in to actually show off the particular hairstyle that I'm trying to illustrate in each one of these. And so after I finished all the sketches and I was relatively satisfied with them, or at least I could stand to continue, this is where the fun part actually begins, because like I mentioned many times in my other videos, my absolute favorite part of most of my process is the line work, because I finally get a chance to just fix everything and put the features exactly where I want them to go and just be super satisfied with the result. And that tends to happen like 99% of the time. So for me, inking is a fail-safe step that never really goes wrong, thankfully. So one thing that I wanted to talk about in this video about the inking in particular is this may be not super noticeable to you guys, but if you compare this video to this process, or like this inking process, to the previous ones in the series, like the previous two characters that I did the hairstyle meme for, you can see that here I'm using a different brush, and I am only using this one brush for the entirety of the process. So in the previous videos, I would switch between maybe 2 or 3 brushes and kind of go between those for different textures to achieve like a rough effect. And I've been doing that for about a year, maybe a year and a half. And now that I was thinking about it, so I was recently going back to figuring out how I'm going to approach the execution of my comics. So I've been kind of sitting on the prologue, which has been thumbnailed, and the thumbnails are pretty detailed, so it's I've done like a fair amount of work on it, and it's pretty much ready to be taken to the next step. And for a little while, I was convinced that I will try to do it traditionally, and that's something that I've spoken about on this channel before, if you might remember. But I've been kind of going back on that and rethinking that whole plan in the last couple of months, I can't believe it's been a couple of months already. The summer has just been really flying by so quickly. I can't even believe how much time already passed. But anyway, so I started with trying to do an illustration to mark like the beginning, like just an opening illustration for the prologue, and I wanted to do that traditionally also, as well as I was planning to do the prologue traditionally, but I just ran into a bunch of problems while I was trying to execute this illustration in the process of trying to transfer it onto paper, and it made me realize that like traditional art, as nice as it is and as much as I love doing it now and then, it's got so many like unpredictable variables that I can't account for, and it really would derail me to run into problems like that when I'm actually working on a comic. And another thought is that I don't like the idea of having to leave something to get fixed or to get brought to to get fixed and get brought to a stage where I'm happy with it by going digital after the traditional part is already done. And so I was really kind of weighing out the pros and cons of doing it traditionally, and long story short, in the end, I have decided that it would be the wrong move for me to try to do it traditionally, not only because I just want to get this going already. As you might imagine, I'm pretty frustrated with the fact that I'm still kind of just very close to the execution stage, but like still not. Like I guess technically I am in this execution stage because I do have the thumbnails ready to go for the prologue, but having been stuck there for like a few months at this point, it's just way too long, and just being reminded of the fact that the traditional process can be too unpredictable and too messy made me rethink my strategy, and I did decide to do it digitally after all, because essentially what my thought process about this is that I looked back on the previous comic work that I did, which was, as some of you may know, called Grimoire Noir, which was a graphic novel, and I set a very high bar for the execution of that for myself, and especially at the time, I will say that it was literally the most, like I couldn't really go, I don't know, I guess it was the peak of my abilities, I think, is where the bar was set personally, because it was very similar to my regular illustration process, just like slightly streamlined, but generally speaking, it was the top of what I could do at the time. And honestly, as far as that goes, I don't think that has even changed all that much in these years, because I have certainly improved in a lot of ways, but as far as process and polishing and like execution goes, if I just use the exact same process as Grimoire Noir, I honestly think it would be completely redundant to try to make it any quote-unquote better or like more, I don't know, polished, or there's like nowhere to go really, because it would be stupid, because even with Grimoire Noir, I think some parts of it were slightly overdone, like especially the first couple of chapters where I could have probably spent less time on them and it would have literally made zero visual difference. And that's one of those things that you only notice after like this type of insane mileage that working on a graphic novel produces. Like you will notice that sometimes just because you put more time into something and just because you put more effort and care into differentiating certain aspects of the comic book illustrations doesn't mean that the impact that it's going to have on the viewer will be all that different or all that more meaningful or like intense, is, you know, because you'd think that if you spend more time and the illustration is like more beautiful or like more polished and therefore it'll be more impactful. I will say not necessarily. And so that being said, I revisited that process, and I know that I only used one single brush for inking, like literally just one brush, and I did not jump back and forth like I have been over the past couple of years with my regular illustrations. Like the process is very similar, but I just kind of, for whatever reason, I think I had some artists that I came across that I was very inspired by that used a lot of variation in their line work, and they clearly went back and forth between different brushes and like utilized different textures to their advantage. And so that's the kind of thing that I wanted to emulate when I have been doing line art for the past couple of years. But with this hair meme, I decided to just use as like a chance to go back and revisit what it would be like to just use the one brush to ink and see how much of a difference it would even really make in the end result. And I am here to report that it makes very little difference in the final product. Like, there definitely is a difference for sure, but I don't think it's enough of a difference for me to warrant going like extending the time it takes to ink something just to include more line variation when I can just use one brush, make it simpler, more streamlined, and the result is really like not that different. So that was a really long way of explaining why I've decided to probably use this one brush exactly the same way that I did when I was working on Grimoire Noir for Gloaming Veil. Because I mean, I didn't say this verbatim, but I have been, like, up until now, I was planning to use my, like, updated inking approach by switching between multiple brushes to create, like, a more textured look. But yeah, now I'm, like, just deciding that it's probably redundant to go that route, and it's best to just kind of stick to what I already know. And I don't know, I just wanted to share that with you guys because it is, like, starting such a long-term involvement project is very difficult, and because the only thing that I have breathing down my neck is like my own personal disappointment with myself, and like obviously the expectations of others who have been waiting for me to just start this comic or like restart this comic already, it's definitely enough to make me feel bad about it, but I guess it appears to not be quite enough to actually make me draw it really quickly, because in the past, what has made me super productive in short amounts of time, although it was miserable a lot of the time, it was kind of like the monetary incentive, because unless I did the work, I wouldn't get paid, and obviously that comes with a set of very straightforward problems that are best to be avoided. And so now I'm thinking that like there's obviously nothing I can do about that, but I just have to find a way to motivate myself, and one of those ways for me is to like simplify the approach, because since I had less time constraints, less no oversight from anybody else, I think I just, without thinking too hard about it, was raising my own expectations way too far when it came to this comic. And that's actually like one of the biggest reasons why it's just been taking so long, is because it is a constant inflation of expectations that goes hand in hand with just being insecure about my ability to write or my ability to tell a story or any number of those things. But yeah, I guess eliminating like secondary factors really kind of helps me at least come to a more relaxed mental space where I feel less pressure to work on it, because as like the more unknowns get eliminated, I guess the easier it is to commit to something. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident. Like there's no, like I obviously feel confident that I can duplicate something that I've done before, you know, as I'm saying with like the Grimoire Noir project. So that's basically where we are. And the biggest difference here is that Gloaming Veil will have a lot more color in it than Grimoire Noir did. And yeah, that's about it. Other than that, honestly, like looking through Grimoire Noir, even just seeing what a lot of the panels look like, I'm still happy with how it looks. And a lot of the things that I would do differently have very little to do with the execution, like the finishing, or the polishing or the step-by-step process of it, and rather it has more to do with just draftsmanship skills that need improvement, or like choosing the shots, like pacing, things like that. Those are the things that I actually would want to concentrate working on it. And so in order to, I guess, simplify the actual rendering process or the step-by-step process that I'm coming towards, it'll open up the necessary space for me to improve on these other things that I have mentioned, I think, anyways. But yeah, so that's something that I wanted to share with you guys as far as updates on the comic go. I know that it's been pretty stagnant, honestly. Like, I don't even know what happened to the last couple of months. They seem to have gone by so quickly. I don't understand. Like, looking back, I don't even know what I was doing, but it's basically the past couple of months has basically been taken up mostly by freelance for me, unfortunately. Hate to say that because this seems like a very similar situation to ones I've been before, but especially in this case, like, I really needed the income because of some recent circumstances and because I recently moved. But that is wrapping up as of now, and unfortunately I actually spent most of August doing freelance, which is why I kind of fell behind on a lot of my personal project plans. But I'm hoping to pick it back up like as soon as possible because the freelance has been ramping down now. And yeah, sometimes I wonder, like, if I make these choices to do these hairstyle memes and whatnot, and if that's just like really short-sighted of me. I like to do these things because they are relevant to my comic and they are fun, but also there are other ways that I utilize this time that I spent drawing. For instance, I like to use it as practice to draw the character's face consistently, especially with different facial expressions, because it can be difficult, and especially out of practice, like drawing a character in some sort of generic facial expression like I have been for the past few years when just working on illustration, like one-off illustrations, is very different from posing and drawing different facial expressions for characters within a comic. And that's a skill that has sort of diminished for me, I think, just because I'm so out of practice. So I decided to take the opportunity with these hair memes and at least introduce some variety of facial expressions into it in order to get those skills back, I guess, and refamiliarize myself with these characters, whose face always gets updated with my style that keeps changing over the years. And so that was a very good use of this hair meme. And like I already talked about at length, the experimenting with the line art and seeing how it'll go just using one single brush was also a pretty important step for me to take before I just jump into the comic. So yeah, and I guess as far as updates go, that's about it. I don't want to keep going on and on about my comic because I know that's something that I talk about a lot in this channel, and believe me when I say that I'm totally aware, like painfully aware, of how ridiculously long it has dragged. And I don't know, I don't even really want to think about it right now because it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, so I'm kind of at a point where I just need to stop talking about it and just do it. So that's where I'm at. And speaking of just doing it, I've already set up the files and everything for the prologue, and so I'm on the cusp of beginning the inking process. And at this point, the only thing outside of my comic that I have to schedule around is basically just conventions, which I'm doing a few of this year. There's one that I'm doing very soon. Actually, when I publish this video, I will probably be at the convention, which is Fan Expo Canada in Toronto. And that is a great local convention that I love to go to now and then. And I'm definitely doing New York Comic Con this year, so if any of you guys are going there, I would love to meet some of you in person. Initially my plan was to have at least the prologue and the first chapter ready in print for one of these upcoming conventions. Definitely not the one that's happening this weekend, for sure. That's too soon. But I was really holding out hope that I could do it in time for New York Comic Con, but unfortunately I have fallen behind due to freelance work, and that's just where things are at. But I will see what I can do. So hopefully it won't take too much longer than that time frame. But that being said, yeah, this is the second last hair meme that I'm going to be doing. I just have one more main character left after Noelle, which will be Fiona, and then I will be free of the hair meme commitment, which I have placed upon myself for no apparent reason. So yes, I am happy to just to give you guys a little update on what I've been up to. And I want to thank you for continuing to watch my videos, and it always means a lot to me when I get comments, and even though I can't reply to all of them, I thank you for taking the time to leave them. And yeah, thank you guys so much for your support, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.